paper thin skin, held up longer than I was wanting to.
Welcome to Center Stage, the documentary podcast. Each week, our group of intrepid researchers and music archivists dig through the record crates of the world, looking for that one artist to take center stage. Using a patent-pending algorithm and spirited debate, we pick one artist. Once that is settled, we invite that artist into Thunderlove Studio to chat with your hosts Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. When we're lucky, they say yes. Our mission with Center Stage is simple: to make sure the recorded work of artists remains, or in some cases lands on, the cultural radar. We invite you to sit back and relax. Thank you for joining us.
All right, all you rootin' tootin' prudence, let's go to the Mensclub day off picnic.
While the world was deeply entrenched in grunge, a power trio from San Francisco took a decidedly different approach. Borrowing equal parts of Grand Funk Railroad and the Stooges, they reinterpreted Detroit hard rock with a bit of West Coast flair and a whole lot of cheekiness. Mensclub weren't angsty, they were a party band. And not only did they come to party, but they knew how to party too. We got the chance to speak with Ron Noodleman about the band's background, influences, and history. Here is our conversation with Ron about Mensclub. So, Ron, how do I pronounce your last name? Is it Noodleman?
I don't mind either way. I've always pronounced it Noodleman.
Noodleman. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's great. I'm going to start with a real basic question.
Okay.
Who is Mensclub?
Who is Mensclub? Wow. That could be answered in a lot of ways. It's the coming together of a lot of bands and people and young musicians in the very early 90s. And it's linked to the discovery of a lot of new rock and roll that we discovered in our lives at that time.
Okay.
And it's also, as you could guess, judging by the material, the song titles, lyrics, etc. I think has a lot to do with, the people we were back then, trials and tribulations in life, young life and relationships. But I would also say some of that kind of centers towards me, as far as, the main thrust of the idea of the band.
Okay.
And things like that. But centered on me and the bass player, John, it was sort of our thing.
Okay.
I would say. at first.
It's a trio, right? It's you, John, and
yeah,
Tom
and Tom. Yeah,
okay.
Power trio.
Power trio.
Yeah.
Now, you and John have a long history as a duo before forming Mensclub. How did those early years shape the sound and attitude you ultimately brought to the band?
First of all, how did you come to know that we played a lot of music together, just the two of us? Did I mention that?
No, you didn't. There's a Bar None Records has a bio on you guys, which I'll link to in the show notes section.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So, it sort of started off. I have a big brother, 3 years older than me. Okay. We're all down from San Mateo, California, which is south of San Francisco, about 25 minutes. And my big brother and John went to high school together. So John's also about 2 or 3 years older than me also. And that's how the connection started, is that I became friends with all of my older brother's friends, and John was one of them. We all ended up in a party house in San Mateo that we all lived in together with, bands and people and, all kinds of bad things and lots of fun. And over the course of that, John and I had a chance to play a little bit of music together during that time. And then after that time, when everyone kind of moved to San Francisco, when San Mateo just didn't work anymore. And that's when John and I started hanging out a lot and just riffing together, just riffing like crazy. We were both getting into a lot of the same music at the same time. That was probably around like 92. Okay. Moving to San Francisco, meeting some people that were turning us on to all kinds of great music, especially Detroit rock and roll. Yeah. Early Grand Funk Railroad was huge for us. And you can see that on the record. We have some tribute music to Grand Funk. Discovering their early records was extremely influential on us, and affected the way that we played music together and the types of riffs that we tried to write. MC5, Stooges, you name it. All these Detroit bands that we had some new friends that were turning us on to all this stuff we'd never heard before. Oh, wow. Frigid Pink, Alice Cooper, just the list goes on and on. And we really just found a musical chemistry together. We were highly energized by some of the stuff we were doing, if that makes sense. In San Francisco at the time, there was, it was cheap to live here, for one thing. A lot of artists lived here, and people that were making music, and tons of punk rock and, acid rock and loud music was going on. And there was a lot of drugs, and there was a lot of drugs that gave you a lot of energy, and a lot of that was going on, and we were riffing like crazy. And the thing with John is he's sort of my favorite kind of bass player. Played with a number of bass players. He doesn't know a whole lot about, say, the fretboard, like which note is A, which note is B, which note is C, stuff like that. Right. But I could play anything on guitar that I wanted. Chord progression, any old riff, like really fast runs, whatever it is. And he would just watch, and then he would just do something that made perfect sense. He just had this way of being able to play along to anything I put out there. And it was, pretty magical. And we stuck with that and just kept going and going and going and partying and having fun. And, the jokes rolled, and the jokes, became Mensclub, and, and it ended up, centering around this sort of gimmick, if you will, or focus of yeah, let's talk about how chicks have, made things difficult for us. And just be honest about it and say what we want to say and take our shirts off and be men and, all that.
Pushing the envelope of political correctness, even for then.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and I think it had somehow I think we knew without really thinking about it that it might've been I won't say smart, but it might've been an angle that could work. There were a lot of with the grunge scene and all that, a lot of girl bands coming out that were sort of doing the opposite already, right? Like, saying whatever the hell they wanted to say about men and blah, blah, blah. And, we thought it might be kind of funny to say like, yeah, well, you know what, we're going to just say what we want to say about, chicks and things like that,
Which is, for me, when I saw the song title, was one of the funniest song titles I'd seen in a long while, because I remember the T-shirts, and that's ass, grass, or gas.
Yeah.
No one rides for free.
Ass, gas, or grass. No one rides for free. Yeah.
I remember those T-shirts when I was a kid.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, that's super tongue-in-cheek, but it made sense to us, and it just it was just riff-wise and noise-wise, it was just a blowout song that just we thought was funny, and we could just yell all the stuff we wanted to yell, sort of nested in this ass, gas, or grass idea, which is really pretty trite. Also, I think like Fu Manchu had a song called Ass, Gas, or Grass too. And I remember hearing about that. And we were like, wait a minute, that was ours,
Now, these guys that turned you on to all these bands from Detroit, were they from Detroit? Because it's very Detroit specific, these influences you mentioned.
Sure. Specifically one person. No, they were not. Specifically one person, name was Brett Miller, was from Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was very steeped in the music scene before he came to San Francisco. He was in an old 60s revival garage band from down there called the Primates. You can actually find that record, if you search around. He knew a bunch of people down there in the music scene. I think he even knew like the guys in Red Cross and stuff. And he lived up there and he was partying hard, but he knew about all this music and had a vast record collection that, he curated and took care of. And that was much different than any, collection I ever tried for. And it was hanging out with him, mostly Brett Miller, that really opened my eyes to a lot of great music.
Now, San Francisco at the time, this predates the .com boom and bust and all the money that's there now. What was that energy like in the early 90s in San Francisco?
It was very different from the way it is now. Full disclosure, there was a little bit, stuff was creeping in already a little bit as far as tech, things getting more expensive. When I got to San Francisco, you could feel that just a tiny bit. But I still got to San Francisco at the time where I was jumping from apartment to apartment for anywhere between $200 and $400 a month to live in these amazing Victorian buildings in San Francisco, make all the noise I want, all that kind of stuff. We were just finding ways to do things. The first place I lived in San Francisco was a basement underneath an apartment building that we actually paid $100 a month for.
Wow.
It was something else. It didn't have a kitchen, but it did have a bathroom with a sit-down shower. Completely illegal. Like people would, we lived on the corner of Haight and Webster, in San Francisco, and that's right next to all the projects. And people would pee down the staircase every night, but we had a jam room down there, and we continued to make music, and actually had some recording equipment, and did all that kind of stuff right in the middle of San Francisco, living cheap for a while. Tons of clubs, tons of shows happening all over the place, walked everywhere. It was definitely a good vibe as far as art and music, and it was a city. It was, gritty. Like I said, lots of bad stuff going on, and
right.
Tons of fun to be had. I was in a band back then called Wig Torture, and that's the band we were working on right when I moved to the city at that point. And we were able to play shows down the street all the time, clubs on Haight Street, clubs in the Mission, and other stuff as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, I don't know if that speaks to your question so much, but yeah, the vibe was incredibly different, and it was cheap to live here.
Yeah, when I lived there, it was not cheap to live there.
Oh, when did you live here?
2000 through 2002.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Peak time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So around then, I think if you wanted to rent a room in a place, you were looking at maybe somewhere around $700, even close to $1,000 a month.
Yeah. I had a basement apartment that was $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And prior to that, I lived way out in the East Bay. I lived in Pittsburgh.
Oh, really?
Antioch way. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And used to commute into the city because when I was looking to move out there, I wanted to live in Berkeley, which was, I soon discovered, was out of touch.
Oh, yeah.
Out of reality for me. It was just,
okay.
It was unreal. They were asking for essays to get a screening of an apartment.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, I'm not writing an essay to pay you $1,200, $1,500 a month.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm,
no way.
So here's a question for you. How did you end up on Bar None's radar? They're a label out of Hoboken, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up on their radar?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're not even sure. Well, we are sure, but it was unlikely at the time that we heard from them. And so we put out some 7 inches on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any of those by any chance?
I saw a list of them, but I wasn't able to find them online anywhere.
So I busted into my 7 inches just for interest's sake. And this was the first sort of official thing we put out right here.
Okay.
It's called Mensclub Fresh Start. And it was in, let's see, 94-ish, I think, is where I pegged it. And we did it all ourselves, did the artwork, and we had an idea that we were going to do a whole board game. We were going to put out 4 7 inches with a connecting board game.
Oh, wow.
On the back that we made up ourselves. And of course we didn't complete this idea, back to how we had so much energy at that time, and a few too many ideas. But this we sent everywhere. It was on a label that our friend made up called Switch Track. And he was, he sort of thought he might be trying to get into the music business and wanted to help us out. So we put it on Switch Track, and he mailed it everywhere. Old school, press kit picture, bio, and I believe we had all that going, and mailed it to a ton of labels, and Bar None was one of them.
Okay.
And they got it and apparently listened to it.
Must have.
Yeah, and liked it and thought it was, interesting. And there was a woman that worked at Bar None at the time named Tara. Can't remember her last name at the moment, but we got to know her a little bit over the years. And I received a phone call early one morning in probably like 94, 95 that woke me up. I've never got phone calls early in the morning and never woke up earlier than 9 o'clock, at the earliest. It was like 7:30, and it was Tara from Bar None. She just was like, hey, is this Aaron? And, wanted to talk to you about Mensclub. And basically just expressed that they were interested and they liked the music. And that's kind of how it started. That's how we got on their radar. And they just called me.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And, and it was special for us because we hadn't had anyone else express interest, and we were really hoping that someone would bite. And they called us, and, and we looked into it a little. We're like, wow, Bar None Records, they've done a lot of stuff and they're pretty cool. Also recognizing that they weren't really putting out much that of the type of stuff that we did,
No.
Yeah. Like high energy, heavy rock, or punk rock. And, but they did mention that they were sort of trying to branch out and try to put out some new stuff. And just to expand on that a little bit, it was an interesting time for us because we were going through some trials and tribulations in the band. So we had been jamming with this lineup with our drummer Tom for a couple years, and he was excellent. He's like you've heard the record, mm-hmm. and if you're into drummers at all, you're just like, geez, man, this guy plays so fast and accurate, and things really like got rolling musically with him. And we were just playing all kinds of shows like 94, 95 in the Mission District in San Francisco. And that scene was just killing it at that time. Just like tons of punk bands, everyone in bands playing and partying and, having a good time. And we started doing really well in that scene. And we were actually selling out some small clubs at that time, like the Chameleon and the Kilowatt, which was happening at that time. So it was really, really fun at that point in the city for us. And while all that was happening, and right when Bar None called, Tom got an offer from this other band to get a bunch of money and go tour with them and record their record. This band called the Mises. I don't want to dwell on that. They were this San Francisco band that, they were kind of popular in San Francisco, and they got signed to a major label. Okay. They had all this money, and Tom was a great drummer. And I remember the guy coming to see our show, and he's like, wow, your drummer's really good. I'm like, yeah, I know, man. It's so great playing music with him. And then next thing I know, they've like plucked him out of our band. And we were young, I don't think I handled it very well at the time,
Sure.
I was pretty upset. John and I were pretty upset, and Tom was like, I really want to go do this. I want to try being in this band. And that's understandable. It's like they gave him some money and they went and recorded a record and did some touring in England, I think. And that was when the whole Bar None thing was happening. And we were like, we're about to get signed onto a label and have, like a purpose here, and a way to, play more of our music and tour and things like that. And then this happened. But somehow we were able to kind of wait and keep the Bar None thing going. And after he went and toured in England with his band, he was like, dudes, this was fun, but I miss you guys. I really want to do this. And, and he knew that we were going to get signed. And so he came back to the band.
Okay.
And then we did sign a contract with Bar None.
That's great.
Yeah. It's a weird time. Fun, though. we went through a lot of, we were really down and like, should this whole like thing that people in bands go through, you know, should we get another drummer? Should we do this? Should we do that? And I think in the long run, it was good for us to have to go through that.
I think it was Jeff, my co-host, who's not here today, who said, and I don't know if he said it or coined the phrase, but a band is only as good as its drummer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much truth there is to that. I'm not a musician. I'm just a big old music nerd.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some truth to that. I mean, you know, depending on the type of band, Mensclub was definitely, you know, this power trio.
Yeah.
Where similar to Grand Funk, if I may,
you may.
Each member is just as important musically as the other member. So yeah, for sure, you know, like without Tom, it's just like, we're not Mensclub anymore. We wouldn't be able to do this. But it would have been the same without me, and it would have been the same without John as well, because it's just three people and there's a certain chemistry. It's either going to be that or nothing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Grand Funk Railroad doesn't get name checked very often as an influence, or at least it hasn't in the bands that, you know, I've spoken with over the years.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think, you know, to get into like a lot of the, you know, like heavy rock bands that were happening, you know, like back when we were kind of doing our thing in the 90s, you know, I mean, some of the San Diego bands like Nebula and Fu Manchu, I'm going to blank and not think of enough, but, you know, all those guys probably listened to all that early Grand Funk stuff. And then a lot of the heavy bands coming out now, you know, like all the TP record bands and European bands on like Heavy Psych Sounds records and the Riding Easy label and all that stuff. You know, like any of those bands are going to say, oh, yeah, early Grand Funk, you know. But it really is like a heavy rock thing, you know. And Grand Funk, you know, they're best known, of course, for hits like American Band. And maybe some of their cover songs were bigger hits. Like, you know, they did this pretty lame version of Locomotion.
Yeah.
You know, and like, it's just like, that's not at all, you know, the Grand Funk we're referring to. It's like, if you just go find their first, second, third albums and just give them a good listen, you're just like, oh yeah, you know, like this is heavy music. It was happening in 69 and 70. It's Detroit rock. It's got this like energy that you just don't find anywhere but music that came from there. And the other thing about Grand Funk, and especially the way the drummer plays, it's ahead of its time, because they had a simplicity about them that's really indicative of a lot of heavier bands of the 90s that you didn't hear. You know, the stuff you were hearing from heavy bands back then tended to be a little more complicated, and they just had a simple, straightforward way of doing it that was a heaviness that people just hadn't done before. So yeah, if you know, for anyone that wants to get into Grand Funk, go for those first three records and just check it out.
Yeah.
Cool.
You guys straddle the fence almost of heavy rock and punk rock.
Uh-huh.
You know, how much of an influence was punk rock and for you guys?
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were like, you know, we were really into punk rock and classic rock. That party house I mentioned in San Mateo called the Rot. You know, we used to sit around and, you know, listen to Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and, you know, ad nauseum. But, you know, mixed into there was Metallica's first album and the Vandals and Red Cross and, you know, a bunch of LA punk bands, Black Flag, as well as a bunch of other weird, obscure music. And, you know, we listened to a lot of 60s music too. A lot of like 60s garage. I don't know if you're familiar with any of the like, you know, Back from the Grave record compilations, things like that. just like a lot of like underground 60s bands that, put out these songs that never got anywhere. It's kind of similar to what we're talking about today. So we listened to a lot of that stuff too. So we were into a very wide variety of music, but I think it was sort of the combination of all that other stuff we were listening to and this, riff rock that we were sort of just discovering at the time that sort of bloomed into what it did,
Sure.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the song Critic, where you guys say you can't pin us down with your definitions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Over the years, what's the most common misconception of the band? And how did you guys decide to lean into it or push against it?
Good question. I mean, do you know of any misconceptions of Mensclub, or do you have any? I can't.
The only thing is I could see it being referenced as not being politically correct in 1996, and that people might push against that a little bit.
Right. We got a few reactions like that I think people, understandably, that didn't know us might have had sort of a we would leave a distasteful, reaction for them, and, they would be left with a bad taste. Just not think it was funny, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe just, we played with a lot of energy and attitude at the time, like our live shows, which was most of what we were really, in a way, was playing live, and might have just thought, like, these guys are dicks, and they wouldn't have been completely wrong, but people that knew us on the other, or people that got it, I think we're able to get beyond that. As far as reviews that we got and critics, I think it was a mix of I recall a few reviews of the record, Coming to Take You Away, the one that was out on Bar None, that didn't like it, and the reviews were so bad that you could tell that they were offended, by the material. There were some good reviews as well, and then there were the reviews that I was certain were influenced by the song Critic, which, looking back on it, it's like, yeah. So we put a song called Critic on our record that's basically, critics are lame and they don't serve a purpose, and the way they look at rock and roll is defective, basically, is what we were saying, and I mean, I just believe it to a certain extent still. It's like, we felt like, we're in rock and roll, we're playing rock and roll, we believe it, it's the energy we feel, and you write about it and don't get it and are wrong most of the time. We just really had this chip on my shoulder about it. And, at the time, in my delusions, I was linking it with Grand Funk too. The critics hated them.
Oh yeah.
They didn't get it. They didn't get it. They didn't understand what we've, they don't know how much fun we had listening to that stuff, So we put this song Critic on our record. And so it's either the second or third song.
Third.
It's So you can imagine a critic gets to the first two and like, oh, that was pretty cool. You know, that's interesting. I haven't heard anything like this before. And then critic comes on.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I've just been completely insulted for what I do. So, you know, there were a couple of reviews where I was certain that happened. And they were so, just such angry reviews, you know, and just like immature. Even went as far as to talk about how the instruments sounded terrible and the production was bad, and you know, like things, and they weren't wrong completely, but yeah, I would say misconceptions that would maybe fall into the category of the misconceptions. On the other hand, you know, like we were friends with that band 7 Year Bitch from Seattle, and you know, we played a show or two with them, and you know, they got it.
Yeah.
And they would have been the perfect people to be super offended by it, you know?
For sure. For sure. There was recently on Substack, there was a discussion about whether or not critics should write negative reviews. And having been the recipient of those, I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on whether or not critics should write negative reviews.
Yeah, good question. I think they should write whatever they want.
Agreed.
And you know, they don't need to protect anyone's feelings. And if they feel a certain amount of viciousness, you know, towards a band, angry with a band or something, go ahead, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, you know, I think it's like any good journalism, I guess, in a way, right? Like if you appear too biased, I think it loses a little bit of credibility, you know? So I've read reviews of other bands that, you know, where it's like, whoa, they really hated this band, you know? And I think like, well, I wonder why, you know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, that would be my feelings on that. I'm in a band now called Hot Lunch, and our singer is a writer, and he's a really good writer. He also works for Pandora, and over the years, he's done tons of album reviews and is asked to write in a critical way about music every day. Or
for sure.
And, you know, and he just has, his name's Eric Shea. He just has a really nice way of talking about stuff. And like if he feels something, you know, if like, you know, say for instance, he feels a piece of music is too influenced by something else, or so, you know, he'll just say it, but not in like a necessarily a mean way, you know, just like keep perspective. And I think reviews like that are a little more interesting to me, because then you can kind of, it makes you think more about the music and what it might be like, you know, as opposed to like, you know, these sort of more sensationalistic reviews that are more or less meant to either, you know, get out a bunch of anger or get a bunch of reads, or clicks, or, you know.
To that end, do you think Mensclub resisted easy categorization in the music scene? Did you actively resist it?
I think we did in a way. I think we felt strongly that we were unique, and weren't like a lot of bands that couldn't help try to sound like other stuff. As much as we did take from, you know, certain bands and genres, I think we were a unique entity. And I think our response, if we were pigeonholed, or if people asked us what we sounded like, we would, you know, say with a certain amount of attitude, probably, that we just love rock and roll. You know, we're just a rock and roll band. You know, we just do what we do. You know, we're just trying to have fun. We just want to take our shirts off and, you know, and go party, you know, and that was our thing and kind of our angle.
There's certainly a cheeky element to a lot of the songs, but there's also a great deal of intelligence to them as well. There's at least I think there is. I mean, was that an active for you guys? Did you try to straddle cheeky and intelligent?
No, Well, I mean, maybe in a way, I think the cheeky part we were trying to straddle a bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I did believe a lot of the stuff I was saying. I was a bit deluded back then. I was super messed up from relationship stuff. I had trouble handling things back then. I had trouble handling people and relationships, with even just friendships and things like that. And it was, for me, in a lot of ways, it was a reaction that meant a lot to me to be able to say, yeah, well, you know what, all these chicks really messed up my life, and that's what I'm going to talk about, but yet I think it was also for me starting to be like a way in to grapple with that stuff.
Sure.
So that said, in a way, I kind of meant all that stuff that I was saying in a way, but there's the obvious cheeky parts of it too, that we, of course, like when you talk about, some of the, I would say, overtly misogynist material, in there is, yeah, of course, we were straddling cheeky and trying to get a rise,
Mm-hmm.
And there were some reviews actually that got it. Some of the really early reviews, like for these demo tapes we put out before we had Tom, we had this other drummer, Sniper Sam, we used to call him. And he was a great dude, and he was a great drummer. He wasn't like powerhouse drummer so much like Tom was, but we did write a lot of our initial material with him, and he just had the spirit all the way. Anyway, we had these demos we did with him that had some of the songs we ended up re-recording with Tom.
Okay.
And we got reviews. Those were the reviews we got from sending cassettes in the early 90s to mags like BAM Magazine, SF Weekly, like these, when everyone figured out what show they were going to go to by getting one of these free mags in on the street. And we made like hundreds of cassettes and photos, silly press kits we'd send everywhere. And anyway, so I think it was SF Weekly maybe, or BAM that wrote this review, and they totally picked up on that. They were like, hey, this is fun rock and roll not only for the XY generation of, girl rockers or whatever, but also for the other half that wants to say this. And, they fully got the joke and played along. So there were people that got it. And I think we succeeded, maybe somewhat in that regard. And I think bar none got it. They were,
sure.
They were cool. They were like, yeah, this is funny. And, let's give this a shot.
Which it begs the question I have to ask, because Beaker was always one of my favorite Muppet characters.
Yes.
How did that song come to be? I mean, Beaker is kind of an obscure Muppet character, but those of us that love him.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad we're talking about Muppets now. And it's always lovely to hear that other people are interested in Muppets.
Yeah.
I had a huge Sesame Street obsession in high school, and I would watch episodes and they would still show some of the old stuff, and I would record them on a VHS. And I had some Beaker footage And if I'm not mistaken, we were watching some of that during this time where we were writing a lot of the initial Mensclub material, super hopped up and just going to town late night on riffs and riffs and riffs. And we just started laughing about Beaker because he was such a tweak, you know. he's such a hilarious character.
Yeah.
And it started making sense to us in our whatever type of haze we were in. He must have been an amphetamine addict. And there's, you know, and the more we thought about it and his relationship with the doctor, Dr. Honeydew Bunsen, I think you're right. It made perfect sense. And very quickly a song came out of that. And the song's lyrics are, you know, simply about how, Beaker had a problem. And that's this our short story of Beaker's situation.
Not quite an intervention. A musical intervention, yeah.
Not an intervention at all. But he was in a bad place when in the doctor's lab with all kinds of chemicals within arm's reach, and you know he had some serious issues. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. We loved Beaker. That was a John riff.
Okay.
And I have a very special place in my heart for that riff because that was a real great example of just this type of thing that our bass player John could come up with out of the blue, like, you know, just like, yeah, let's go, let's play, and then all of a sudden you just see this thing. It's like, all right, you know, there it is.
Now, it's safe to say that your music is adrenaline-drenched rock and roll.
Yes.
And it's intense. What is it also safe to say that what drove the intensity is adrenaline, rebellion, or personal catharsis, as well as, well, we'll say chemicals?
I would say all of the above.
Yeah.
Personal catharsis, I like that. All the music around us at the time seemed to have some of that. And I think everyone wanted to outdo the next person, you know, for one thing. But also a lot of it was in our musical influences. And a lot of the stuff that we listened to for a long time. I mean, I'll go back to this here. You know, I'm looking at, you know, like stuff I used to listen to as a kid, and even some of that stuff. You know, you can find adrenaline in folk music. You know what I mean? Like you know, listen to like you know, like even an old Bob Dylan song, like what's that song? You know, like you've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend.
Oh yeah.
That was like one of my favorite songs when I was a kid. I couldn't believe that song when I heard it. But like the way people played on old shit always had adrenaline and energy that just was just part of rock and roll and pop music back then. You know, even you listen to like stuff that was all studio musicians, maybe some old like Tom Jones or something. And you know that those guys are going off, man. They're, you know, they play with an energy. Old surf music like the Ventures and stuff. You know, it's all, you know, there's just this freneticness about a lot of the music we grew up with, and I think we had a lot of that in common.
Yeah.
And then you know, you get into some of the garage rock stuff like the Kinks and, you know, Hendrix and Ramones and all this. Just
sure.
And then on top of that, the Detroit stuff, which just upped the energy.
Yeah.
You know, and that was, I think that has a lot to do with where it came from. And yeah, you know, and what we were doing, how we were living. John, the bass player, he was a bike messenger.
Wow.
And that's actually kind of important to the history of Mensclub, if I may. So that job is all adrenaline.
Yeah.
And these were not electric bikes. These were in the 90s. It was like a huge deal. You know, these guys.
And the hills in San Francisco. These guys rip all over the city on their bikes, delivering packages for companies.
and it was dangerous but insane, and they were just a great, awesome, fun, insane group. And they actually, the bike messengers in San Francisco were the mainstay of Mensclub's fans.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
and
interesting.
That's an important link to know about, like, well, how did Mensclub get to be known in San Francisco at the time? It's the bike messengers. Because
Really?
they liked it.
Yeah.
And they would pile into our shows and have a good time and go crazy. And it's exactly what we wanted. We used to call them critters,
Critters.
They're the critters. And they'd, like, yeah, we got a lot of critters at that show. Huh? Yeah, that was a good time, just a lot of adrenaline back and forth, really, at the time. Yeah. Our song Fly is all about the bike messenger thing.
A song like Drug Pit showcases your hard rock and punk roots. Is there a song that you feel defines your identity, the Mensclub identity? And if there is one, why?
Okay. I'm going to just grab the record here so I can get a whole bunch of song titles in my brain at once. Huh. Well, I would say Drug Pit wouldn't necessarily be the one song to describe the whole identity of the band, although it's important because it's where we were at. And if you listen close to the lyrics, you can hear that in a lot of ways that part of where we were at, the Drug Pit part, might not have been going so well,
Right.
In some ways. And I think that's important. There's the songs that more people know about that might be, you maybe could identify Mensclub with more. Ass Gas or Grass, Leather Uppers.
Which is a great song.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's about a Canadian band from the 90s.
Really?
Yeah, they were awesome. They were just these two guys, Craig and Greg.
I'm Canadian.
They were so good. Yeah, from Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah, Leather Uppers, highly recommend.
Telling people it's fucking town.
yeah, songs like Ass Castor Grass and Leather Uppers, Going Solar, Grand Funk Mensclub. Those are the songs we make sure to play if we do like a reunion show. Sometimes those reunion shows are supposed to only be about 5 songs long. Those are 4 that we'll always play. Maybe because they were the best known. Maybe because we identify with them a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one, it would probably be GFMC, Grand Funk Mensclub, because it was sort of our attempt to describe, the whole fun and games thing about us and our obsession with, late 60s heavy music. Maybe Ask Ass or Grass, because it's simple. It's, easy to understand, headbanger, that's my best answer to that one.
Now you guys reunited according to San Francisco Weekly, I think it was. Yeah, San Francisco Weekly in 2009. How often do you guys get together now? And well, I guess let me start by asking, what happened to the band? And it wasn't an acrimonious split, I presume. Or was it?
No, it wasn't terrible, actually.
Okay.
So after Coming to Take You Away, we did some touring. We did not, that album did not do well. And bar none did their best to promote it. One of the things with Bar None back then, they had a great promotion department. What they didn't have was anyone that could get us on some good tours. And that speaks to, well, why did we sign with Bar None anyway? Because there's no bands like us on Bar None. Like, wouldn't it have made more sense at the time to sign with TP Records and maybe go on tour with, some of these other like heavy music bands we loved, like Fu Manchu or Nebula, stuff like that. Okay. So we were stuck booking our own tours, which I couldn't keep up with. And then we had a booking agent here in San Francisco that did their best and got us on a few tours around the country, but weren't, didn't pan out. The tours weren't good, except for a few towns. We ended up in a few towns that were just amazing, like Houston. 200 people show up and they all know the lyrics.
Wow. Yeah.
But other places, no. And just like, oh, the show got canceled. It got that bad, We still had a lot of fun,
Sure.
Going around in the country in our van and all that. So we did a bunch of that and tried our best. The album got a little bit known, not very known. Europe didn't happen. We were really hopeful for that. No one latched onto it in Europe and said, awesome, I'm going to, can you guys come over to Europe? And, that happened with another band of mine, later, and it wasn't so hard, but it did not happen with Mensclub, unfortunately, because I think that could have been good. And what ended up happening, okay, so we put out this album, Coming to Take You Away, let's do another record. And Bar None wanted to do another record.
Oh, okay.
And they wanted us to record with Wharton Tears in Manhattan. Wharton Tears, what was that band he was in? He was in a couple great bands, but he was a drummer, an excellent drummer. And he had a recording studio in Manhattan. He recorded tons of bands. He had a hit producing Helmet's hit, that band Helmet.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, whatever that song was, it wasn't one of my favorite songs or anything, but it was a huge hit. It was on MTV and everything. Wharton Tears produced that.
Okay.
And so we were like, oh, hell yeah, we'll come hang out in New York for a month and record with Wharton Tears. And we did. And there's actually a whole record. It's all mixed and everything. Bar None wanted to call it 13 Heavies, and we wanted to call it Group Nut Music. and it never came out. And I think it was a little bit hastily mixed. And I think if we ever did want to put it out, we'd probably try to remix it if we could find the tapes. But we did all of that, and that was pretty intense. We had this album, in the can, ready to go. It ended up being put out as a promotional CD because they were, I think, trying to see if it was going to get any bites and that kind of thing. And then during that time, I think the changes that we were all personally going through and where we were at in our lives here, the whole thing wasn't making a whole lot of sense anymore. And I think it was our drummer first who was just kind of like, I'm probably not really going to be able to do this for much longer. And I think we were all fairly like, the reason it was not acrimonious was because it made sense in a way at the time that we would that we could stop doing this and kind of go on to some new things and decrease things that we were doing that were not good for us physically.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I think we were all kind of reaching, an age where what was coming up started to mean a little more. And then the bottom line is, no one was chomping at the bit to like put out our record, or give us a great tour or, anything like that. And so we kind of just called it quits. Played one last show at a house.
Okay.
In an apartment with just some really good friends, some people that had sort of been with us for the whole thing. And that was
There's a whole other record. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We're a little over an hour. What are you up to now? What are you working on now?
Thanks for asking. After Mensclub, there was a series of bands that didn't really pan out too much. There was a band called Sunless Day that was on Amazing Grease Records in the late 90s, 2000s. That label was run by Spiral Stairs, Pavement.
Okay.
And that was cool. That band, we got to play with those guys once. I did a solo record back then on the same label, just called Aaron Noodleman. And moving on from there were a few more bands. And then the most significant thing was Hot Lunch, which started maybe somewhere around 2010. And that was with some dudes I'd been hanging with, in the scene in San Francisco. Rob Alper on drums from this band, The Fells, and Eric Shea, who I mentioned before, the writer, who'd been in a whole bunch of bands. And that was, more heavy stuff. And we ended up on TP Records, and that band actually did some stuff and went to Europe. And we're still together, even it's been a really long time, but we actually still play. And we have a show coming up in San Francisco at the Great American Music Hall. You remember that spot?
I do.
Yeah. We get to open for this band, The Saints, like an early 70s punk band that
awesome
still plays. They're doing 3 nights at the Great American. And we were lucky enough to get one of those nights. So yeah, there's Hot Lunch, and I'm doing a new band that I've been doing for about 2 years or so. And we're called Hardbark.
Hardbark.
Yeah, okay. Hardbark. And it's kind of like, it's a lot more songwriting for me. And it's hard rock. And we just put out a Bandcamp EP. That's kind of where we're at
okay.
Yeah. Hoping to get some attention and maybe do a little touring or put out a record, a bunch of material. HAARDVARK SF.
Cool. I'll link to that in the show notes as well.
That's about it. A lot of music. I'm playing a Halloween party, an annual San Francisco Halloween party called Hallarager, where local bands get together and do cover bands, and we're doing Lynyrd Skynyrd. So I'm steeped in learning about 10 Lynyrd Skynyrd songs right now.
10? Okay.
Yeah, which is really difficult and really fun.
Yeah, I'm a big Skynyrd fan. And
awesome.
I don't think they get their just desserts.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I agree. Especially agree now after trying to learn a whole bunch of the guitar parts.
Again, I'm not a musician, but even listening, I'm like, God, there's a song they have off of Street Survivors called I Know a Little. I think it's off Street Survivors.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that one, but I'll check it out.
It's unbelievable. The guitar playing is just phenomenal.
Awesome.
Phenomenal. Listen, Ron, thank you. This has been very, very fun. I hope it wasn't too painful for you.
Oh, no. Did it appear painful?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay, good. Sure. No, it was super fun for me.
Cool.
And just really great to get to go back and just think about the past and, what happened year after year. And I appreciate getting that opportunity. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ron for making the time to share the Mensclub story with us.
This episode of Centre Stage was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins. The show was recorded at Thunderlove Studio, where it was engineered by
Daphne Morris,
with help from
Penetration,
edited by
Vic Titball,
with help from
Clem Fandango.
Our theme song is Cynical by Jaguar on Mars. You can stream Jaguar on Mars wherever you stream your favourite music. The songs you heard during this podcast were Men's Club Day Off, Ass, Gas or Grass, Critic, Beaker, Fly and Leather Uppers. All of these tracks can be found on the Men's Club album Coming to Take You Away. You can stream Men's Club wherever you stream your favourite music. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to everything mentioned during this podcast. Please remember to support independent music.
original music by Mike Pellegrino.
If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps other people find the podcast. Thanks for listening.
Grazie.
Bailey Leaf,
Rob Janicki, Mike Pellegrino, Farina Vella,
S.W. Loudon,
Michael Janicki, Peyton Janicki.
This show's executive producer is Lulu McGillicuddy and is in the loving memory of
Lucas Thundolo.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always obediently yours.
Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.